Fire Emblem Fates Revelation. It's a game known for its gimmicky maps and a unique story. So today I decided to up the gimmicks by attempting to beat this game while defeating the least units possible with the blue unit army. So when we encounter green units, enemies defeated by those units will not count towards this counter, which is actually going to make this game far harder, as in some maps we basically have to solo the game with this. She literally cannot damage the boss. Anyway, for this run, I will not receive the benefits from the DLC or path bonuses. I intended to not have to use the battle or visit rewards, but on a certain chapter, I had to make a slight exception to this rule. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's start with Branch of Fate. As in a previous video, I did the same challenge on Conquest. So if you want to see the first few chapters, and are wondering why our kill count is 7, you can see why in that video. For Corin, I just did the same as last time, plus defense, minus magic, and a talent in Wyvern. Last time I determined that joining the Norians was the most optimal, since they had killed less units than the Hoshidians. But that way of thinking was flawed, since both of these kingdoms are murderers, and therefore joining none of them made for the most optimal pacifist decision. We now start the first map that is actually quite easy, and I just danced Corin and separated in range of the samurai boss. I chipped them down, and on the following turn I killed the boss, making the Hoshidians not move, and then I positioned with Jacob to pair up with Corin on the next turn. I now moved Corin across the water, engaged the other boss, and killed them on the next turn, beating the chapter, killing 2 units. After jumping down this pit, I realized I have accidentally descended upon hell itself. As with this map's closed-in walls, along with Revelation's smarter AI, that will always attack regardless of whether they deal damage. This first group of units were looking extremely hard to overcome. I couldn't just brute force them, as they blocked the way, so my best bet was to just retreat to the previous room. Then from there, I could reposition the Outlaw to be below Corin, allowing her to push into the next room, and I separated to prevent her from being surrounded. Now I ran over to this next dark choke point, and I can't go that way. And with enemies coming from behind, I had to reset. On my next try, I decided to reclass Jacob to Great Knight to grant some more defense, and also some extra move. And that is important, as enemies in this map don't move unless you're in their range. So with the extra point of move, I could escape the Outlaw. But we couldn't outrange the Cavalier. And after revealing the next room, I was pretty sure I wasn't getting past with the units coming from behind. So I now instead reclassed Jacob to Paladin, so he would now outrange the Cavaliers, and would be able to run away from them, so now I wasn't being pushed from behind, and I could retreat to the previous room, and lure a few enemies in there. Then I could run away with Jacob, leaving just a lance fighter in this room, who I could pretty much ignore, and then trigger the next formation of enemies to appear. Here, I needed the space I built up from before. With this space, I retreated to lure in the fighter, to clear a path through this choke. I positioned here to not trigger the samurai, and then I moved left hoping for the archer to move out of the way, which they did, allowing me to move past this chest. On his own, the samurai was no problem, but I had to separate to trigger the next room to prevent myself from being surrounded. After baiting them out of this choke, I just had to switch to Jacob to escape these units. This knight was a non-issue, and we now recruit an imposter, who we will eventually vote out, but at least for now he can help us by boosting our defense. The final group of units was dealt with by the usual, bait them out, then rush in. With the Dragonstone equipped, the boss wasn't particularly dangerous outside of the 1% chance to crit, but with them defeated, I seized the point, beating the map, killing just 1 unit. Because we are invading on Vala's private property, they kindly ask us to leave, which we oblige, but the game now fades to black before showing us how they did this, so I like to imagine that they just had to climb out of this hole. Chapter 8 is a map that isn't particularly interesting. On turn 1, I chose to not pair up Jacob and Corin to make the Oni position in a more convenient location. Then I pretty much just full moved until I was here, where I needed to be careful to prevent baiting out this archer near the chest, as if he got aggroed, his damage would be the deciding factor on whether Corin could survive fighting the boss. So by staying out of range of a dual strike, he wouldn't move, and I could safely approach Yukimura. Here I thought that these one-range units could be kind of hard, since I would probably kill them before I killed the boss, considering they would attack on every turn. But fortunately there's a healer on this map, so when they're low they'll just retreat over there and not attack. So with Dragon Fang unequipped, there was no room for an accidental kill, and Yukimura eventually died, ending the map with 1 unit defeated. Because we are invading Hoshido's private property, they kindly ask us to leave by threatening us with explosions, so we oblige. But because we are extremely smart, we go right, which leads straight to a dead end. On Chapter 9, the Revelation devs asked the Conquest devs if they could steal their homework, which results in this map that for this run requires tight planning and good RNG. My initial plan was to just use Jacob's high move to allow Korin to push towards Fuga as fast as possible, while Kaze and Tsubaki pair up to collect chests. The problem with this plan is it left Rinka, who was forced deploy, to quickly die, and alone with the help of a healer, Korin was no match for Fuga. The solution to both of these problems was quite simple, so on my next try I did this. I paired up Korin with Jacob, then danced and used his high move to stand here, in range to be pushed up. Gunter and Rinka positioned here to protect Sakura and Azura, while Kaze and Tsubaki pair up to collect the chests. On the next turn, Korin moved right here to keep the archer away from this part above, as they would be a problem later on otherwise. Now Korin baited out another archer and got pushed up along with Gunter, Rinka, Sakura, and Azura. Kaze now snagged a chest, my lower squad positioned here just in range to be pushed up, while Korin fought Fuga. By positioning here with Azura, she would not be pushed down as there was an Oni just below her. On the next turn, I positioned my lower squad towards the right of the map and placed Korin just below Fuga, as this would push everyone up and allow Korin to transfer over Gunter for better hits, attack, and then be danced, allowing her to finish off Fuga. Kaze now collected another chest, and Sakura seized the point, clearing the map with a single unit defeated. Chapter 10 is noteworthy for being the funny snow shoveling map, but it is also noteworthy for being quite annoying, especially for this challenge, as I had to look up a map to figure out exactly where each enemy was to make avoiding them much easier. The first mandatory enemy was this fighter, who was relatively easy, as I can just run away, then move away, and now he won't move, allowing me to run along this wall, go up right here, and we now reach this part at the very end. That seemed really hard to get past, as Korin's res was quite low, and she could not survive continuous engagements against the mages. So I had to bait the first group away. The Cavalier was quite easy to isolate thanks to his high move, but the mages were tricky to position around, and I reset quite a few times here just trying to figure out how to get the Dark Mages to move how I wanted them to. Here I thought I found a solution of baiting both the Dark Mages near this part at the bottom, but that still didn't work. But after trying again, I accidentally positioned to make this Dark Mage attack over the wall. From here, I could continue to let them attack across the wall until they were positioned near the start of the map. And with Jacob's extra move, I ran away from the other mage. We were now able to move on to the final group of units, 2 Dark Mages again, and I had no space to retreat. Additionally, Zola was quite strong, and I could not survive fighting him and that group at the same time, so I decided to clear out this area here, revealing a Axe Fighter, but also completing a small circle, allowing me to bait out the mages and have a space to retreat in a circle, allowing me to escape them and prepare for a one-on-one duel against Zola. With the Yato and his shield gauge, Zola was easily defeated in 3 attacks, allowing us to clear the stage, killing 1 enemy. Zola now somehow captures Sakura, while Korin is standing right there, and now Leo shows up and kills Zola, further cementing my decision to not join Nor. Chapter 11 is really hard. Why? You see, this is the first rev map to feature green units, which don't count towards our kill count. And the issue with this is a route map, so we have to kill all enemy units with the green units. The problem here is compared to the enemies, Saizo and Orochi were really bad. And while Reina is good on player phase, her defense is not that good. So for this map I reclassed Korin to Wyvern, since flying was quite good here. For my turn 1, I used Tsubaki to block these 2 units near the bottom. I weakened these 2 units with my others, and then Saizo and Reina got some kills. But Orochi positioned to die on the next turn, so I had to use Gentle Home from Jacob to help her survive. But this actually made the Oni retreat northeast towards a healer, which caused Orochi to move up in range of a Master Ninja that completely explodes her. So I used Obrador to swap her out of the way, but this still aggroes the Master Ninja, and when Saizo attacked, it left only one place for Orochi to stand, making her die. Saizo died shortly after, and now I was being pushed from both the right and the left. There was no way I was winning, so I had to reset. On my next try, I knew I needed to keep Saizo and Orochi away from the right, to not bait out the Master Ninja, since the enemies on the left would move in a set amount of turns, but the enemies on the right wouldn't move unless provoked. To do this, I needed them to see some kills, and these kills would make them move to a more favourable position. So on turn 1, I positioned like this, making the weakened ninja move up. On the next turn, the green units got a few kills, but this didn't go too well as Orochi moved in range of the Master Ninja again. But this time, I was prepared, as with a freeze, she was safe to be swapped away. I now baited out the ninja on the left as I wanted to quickly dispatch them, or I will be overwhelmed by the units in the top left. I mainly relied on Reina to do this as she was the best of the green units, and also with no enemies in their range, Orochi and Saizo would no longer move, which is very convenient, but I still moved in only in Saizo's range so he could kill them. When these ninja were about to move, I positioned Kurin right here, to keep the scary units like the Master Ninja and Archer at bay. This safely allowed Reina to fight off the Ninja and Diviner, but this placed her in range to get destroyed on the following turn, so I blocked the way with Hinata, causing the enemies to be lured down. Unfortunately, Reina was just short of killing this archer, but by surrounding them, we were good, and the Master Ninja was not a problem. With that done, the hard part is over. The green units will no longer move unless there's an enemy in their range. So I just swapped Saizo and Orochi to the bottom left, and I slowly killed the remaining enemies one by one, retreating Reina each time with swap. Yeah, so just weaken the enemies and lure them towards Reina. That's the next part of the map, and it's fairly easy. So with the final non-boss enemy taken out, I attack Kotaro, baiting him into equipping a sword so Reina could attack with a weapon triangle advantage and double with the katana's reduced speed, allowing her to kill him, allowing me to clear the entire route map, killing no one. Chapter 12. I literally just moved 2 flyers up on turn 1, then I debuffed with Kagero, died, did the first 2 steps again, didn't get crit this time, and Reina came in and finished off Flora, ending the map with a single unit defeated. On chapter 13, some unspeakably evil force has destroyed this furry convention, causing these furries to have no place to call home, which is bad because it means they'll join us. We now start this defeat boss chapter by picking up this obstacle and placing it down to block the Hoshidian forces to the right, while I quickly push up, as I want to engage the boss as quickly as possible. I now position to use lunge to move this general out of my way, but this proves to be ineffective, as the wyverns block the way towards the boss. If I lunge to get past them, I would kill them on enemy phase, so I lost here and I had to reset. On my next try, I scrapped the idea of relying on lunge, and I just baited out the general with the spear. I took note of them prioritizing attacking Camilla, and I came up with a plan for my next attempt. As for this attempt, I just tried for a crit that I didn't land. For my winning attempt, I again baited out the general, and with Reina and Camilla with movement boosting pair-ups, I had just enough move to launch this fighter out of the way, allowing for Reina to just barely reach the boss and attack, weakening them. Then I swapped Tsubaki, switched to Azura, danced Camilla, and from there, the map was over, allowing me to clear the chapter, defeating 1 unit. This next chapter was our next roadblock. It's a route map, and that wouldn't be a problem if there wasn't reinforcements that appear at the end of turn 6. So I have to route this entire map in that time limit. But that wasn't the only problem, as there are 2 enemy units that I have to recruit, and they are not close together, and only Elise can recruit them. Oh, and this is my best unit. She dies in like 2 hits. Yeah, my first attempt didn't go well, so I needed some help. So I placed down a forge and forged up a weapon of great power. A big gun. I give my Camilla a big gun, and after promoting Keaton and distributing some tonics, I was ready to take on the map. I start my first turn by trading Elise a freeze from Hinata, then pairing him up. I now visited a village with Kaden, baiting in a cavalier that gets 1-rounded. Elise now pairs up with Baruka, and her and Reina move down and left to this position, while Camilla 1-rounds this fighter. After being danced, Keaton attacks a cavalier, and enemy phase begins, and he easily 1-rounds the paladins, while Camilla performs well in the top left. On our next turn on the right side of the map, nothing too interesting happened other than Kurin visiting this village, but on the left, things got eventful. First I chipped down this cav with Kagero, then I had to lunge down with Camilla. I separated with Elise to let Kagero survive enemy phase. However, who was struggling to survive enemy phase was Camilla. Fortunately, she got lucky and survived the onslaught of attacks. On our next turn, we just had to do some cleanup, crit this general and heal up Camilla, while positioning Baruka just in range to help Elise recruit Charlotte on the next turn. We now did that, killed this merc with Camilla and used Kurin to help take out the knights. Keaton was fine near the bottom, and enemy phase was easily survived. Now I just needed to send Elise to the other side of the map, so I paired up with Reina and danced. I finished up the units near the top right, and Camilla moved to fight the units on the second boat. She wasn't strong enough to 1-round the general, but we still had 1 more turn left, so after recruiting Benny, I just attacked, and thanks to shield gauge, we safely killed the remaining 2 generals and cleared the map, killing a total of 33 units. Okay, so remember how Chapter 11 was hard? Well, check this out. We have to kill the boss with this. Yeah, this was not looking easy. Our first problem is, as a green unit, Nyx will not take these stairs, so we need to buy 2 rescues just to allow her to reach the boss. But that wasn't our main concern, because how was I going to actually manage to get her there? I tried just chaining 2 rescues to skip this first room, but I didn't have enough move to do that. So my thought process changed to how could I get her to kill the enemies in the first room. To do that, I first had to weaken them. Camilla with the big gun could get this done. Shortly after this, I had to send Nyx in. So I froze the general to prevent a dual strike, and I danced, sheltered Azura to safety, and froze the outlaw that one-rounded Nyx. I now positioned a few units to improve her damage and defense, and it was all up to her avoiding one of these 2 attacks. If they hit, she died, so I just had to reset. While I was resetting, I made a mistake that almost killed Gunter, but this caused Nyx to get a turn, and she actually moved an attack that actually surprised me at first, because I expected her to have the same AI as her in Chapter 9 of Conquest where she refuses to attack. Anyway, this AI was actually a good thing, as it would make every room up to the boss significantly easier. Now I got a run going where I avoided one of the mages and she killed them, and on her turn she killed the outlaw, leaving the general all alone, who could one-shot Nyx, so I blocked him off and lunged him onto the stairs. And this caused Nyx to not attack, which left me confused, but it was actually for the simple reason of her dealing 0 damage. So I lunged him off the stairs to deactivate natural cover, and Nyx finished him off. Corin now ran over to Shura, recruited him, paired up, and ran back down. Then I prepared to engage the next room by debuffing this spear fighter with Shura, then I rescued with Elise by this wall, then I buffed up Nyx with Camilla, and prevented the Shrine Maiden from moving by surrounding her. On enemy phase, this mage got weakened by Camilla, and Nyx quickly finished the job, and on the next turn, she finished off the Spear Fighter. After a few turns, the Shrine Maiden died, and so did the baited out Oni, allowing me to safely grab the chest. For this next room, I decided I would skip it, and aim to head straight for the final room, but in order to do that, I needed the units to move out of the way. So with Silas, I ran to the stairs to the left, baited out the general, clearing a way to progress. I decided I needed 2 units in the room to be safe, so I danced Silas here, then rescued Azura out, and positioned here with Silas. With a swap and a movement pair up, Camilla could reach the final chamber, where I separated to create a safe space for Nyx to be rescued on the following turn with Shura. From here, it was fairly simple. I just needed to weaken the units low enough that Nyx could finish them off. Nothing too hard. But the boss being able to heal caused me a little bit of trouble, but again, it wasn't too bad. At the end here, I made sure to block the spaces where Nyx could attack the boss in case she decided to suicide on them. Now I just used Silas as a distraction to ferry most of my squad to the final room. I just had to fight a single axe fighter to do this, and I slowly but surely positioned everyone to boost Nyx's res with personal skills like Lily's Poise, and with regular skills like Gentle Home. Now I just had to swap Nyx in range of the boss. She attacked, survived, then I healed, and the boss then attacked, killing themselves to Nyx's counter curse. With that Azura dance, I collected the next chest, and beat the map killing no one. On Chapter 16, we are joined by God himself, who actually isn't that good in this run. I start my first turn by pushing north with my lower units, and I try to hold the mage in place by surrounding him. This plan was meant to allow me to push straight towards Hans, but a bunch of berserkers moved and it looked impossible to approach Hans from the north. So I tried to retreat down, but I just got trapped around my original position, and I decided to reset. On my next try, I decided to make use of Silas's massive defense to just push straight through the map, since the canyon tiles actually almost prevented me from being surrounded. The rest of my army set their sights on rescuing Ryoma's group, who was pushing straight down. With good use of power up, the enemies from behind couldn't catch up, meaning this fighter was my only problem, but with good AI knowledge I could position them to not be threatening. And Ryoma's squad regrouped with the rest of my army. Meanwhile, Silas gets surrounded by enemies on all sides. But by making use of this map's gimmick, he quickly got out of that sticky situation, and was in range to engage the boss. The problem here is both Camilla and Silas could not one-round Hans, so we have to survive an enemy phase, which wasn't scary luckily, as Hans chose to move first, allowing me to easily clear the map, killing just one unit. On this next chapter we really don't want to lose, because if we do, we will have to do the last map again. Fortunately, this map looked significantly easier. I just had to pair up a few units on some flyers, and position them near the mountains. On my next turn I could push straight down, with everyone except Reyna, who found a nice space to stand over here. We survived enemy phase, but now these cavs blocked a path down for Reina, so unfortunately Reina had to stay just in range of enemies here. But with the guard Naginata, she survived, and now it was time to end this map. I really just had to attack with Ryoma, and then finish with Camilla, then Reina could seize the point, ending the chapter with 1 unit killed. Okay, chapter 18. I originally didn't think this map would be that interesting, but it turns out that my memory wasn't that great, and there are immovable enemies on these dragon veins. And that is a problem, because if we fly up here are units that are 3 spaces away, meaning if I had a spy's weapon, its free range would allow me to lunge over this wall. But right now we can't buy spy's weapons, but after checking online, apparently you can obtain them from the lottery. So with the power of time travel thanks to my emulator, I spent day after fictional day searching for lottery rewards, until I received the jackpot of a spy's weapon. After about 100 in-game days, and over an hour of my real life time, I received my first gold reward of a silver Yumi. I kept trying, but the rewards were always fairly mediocre. It was mostly just a silver weapon or the occasional weapon of greater value, but I still kept trying, and after over 8 hours of attempts and about 700 days, I decided to give up on this and revert to a previous save. I mean, I only had a level 2 lottery shop. The spy's weapon might literally only show up in a fully upgraded lottery shop, but my journey was not over yet. There still existed one method to obtain a spy's weapon, and this is the exception I mentioned in the rules, the visit rewards. However, I still needed to be a ninja to wield this effectively, and to do this I needed an A support with Kagero to use a friendship seal. But right now I have a C rank support, so how are we going to get there? The private quarters. Here, if you invite an ally with a heart icon on them, you receive support points with them. So with the power of time travel once again, I used the private quarters to eventually reach an A rank with Kagero, allowing for Korin to become a ninja. But there was still a problem. Korin had an E rank in daggers. I needed an A rank to wield a spy shuriken. That's around 160 weapon EXP. But how hard is that to obtain? Well, I thought it would be easy because I thought I could just grind on this enemy. But there's a limit of, I think, 5 weapon EXP per enemy. I thought this limit was exclusive to Conquest, but I think it's just a Fate's Lunatic thing. Even with this limit, there were about 50 enemies on chapter 18, and about 8 were locked behind the final chamber. So with 42 enemies, I could potentially receive 42 times 5, 210 dagger weapon EXP, but that seemed unreasonable to execute, so I looked for an alternative method. I could actually try these invasions, and since Lilith is a green unit, she could technically kill every enemy without adding to this count. This would grant me some weapon EXP, but technically I could get more by replaying chapter 16 as a ninja. So what did I do? Did I A, grind on chapter 18, B, grind invasions for the extra weapon EXP, or C, all of the above? If you chose C, you would be wrong. There is actually a 4th method. That's right, we're joining Super Smash Bros. This method I determined to be the funniest, since in the story, they are in a hurry to reach the bottomless canyon before the skies change. So I used Korin's birthday to gradually grind weapon EXP, and after about 80 years I reached an A rank in daggers. And check out my supply of lanterns. I have these, and all of these. After about 15 hours of doing dumb stupid minigames, I reached the bottomless canyon, where I can really relate to the characters, as they eagerly jump to their presumed deaths, since I had literally just been tortured for 15 hours of not playing the video game so I could play the video game. This map is really easy now that we have an A rank in shurikens, and I spent my first few turns grinding on these guys on the forts for just a little bit more EXP, but I messed up and Reina died, so I did it again, and then I flew a few useful units over to this island with the boss. With the Spy Shuriken, I could chip down some of these guys for some extra EXP. When I leveled up a few times, I built up a shield gauge, and I was ready to lunge over. Enemies charged at Korin, but they didn't deal that much damage, and she survived, and easily one-rounded the boss, allowing me to finally beat this map by killing a single enemy. After rescuing a completely unsuspicious Anthony, we move on to this chapter where I pair up with Camilla and rush towards the escape point. Enemies now surround Korin and deal very high damage. It looked like she would just die, but because of my gigantic brain, I just get lucky and dodge most of the attacks, and escape the map killing 0 units. I expected this map to be quite simple, but it wasn't. So first I had Camilla and Corin pair up, and I also deployed Xander to distract this Kinshi, while Camilla and Corin ran up here to stay out of enemy range. At this point here, I had to move in enemy range, and I found out that these Malignites are really scary. They have lunge, and they also hit really hard. So I just got lunge chained, and I just died. And even if I survived, I was usually in a really bad position, and quickly died shortly after. After some optimizing, I came up with this. As before, I just went over here, but this time I built up a shield gauge on this Swordmaster, then I lunged this Falcon, I survived the flyers, and was lunged into a pretty good position. I moved left right here, survived enemy phase again, and attacked the boss with Corin. Without a Hunter's Knife, I was unable to one round, and she got lunged around, but on my next turn I could finish the job, ending the chapter with a single unit killed. Chapter 21 features a gimmick of promoting and unpromoting, which is a gimmick I didn't really interact with. I begin the map by using the Spy Shuriken with lunge to quickly rush down. After surviving enemy phase, I switched over to Camilla for the extra move. She just barely doesn't one round these berserkers with the big gun, which is good. I now activated the Dragon Vein to have an easier time reaching the boss, and I moved here to bait out a sniper. Some more archers came over from the west, so I moved here and equipped the Arto for a better matchup. With lunge, I crossed this wall, placing me in range of the boss, who attacks Corin. She deals low damage in retaliation, and on the next turn, neither her or Camilla could one round, so I had to equip the Killer Axe and bank on a crit. That we got, ending the chapter with one unit killed. On chapter 22, I chose to just deploy Corin and Camilla, and run towards the boss. On my first attempt, I got surrounded by the flyers here, but after one reset, I now baited out the initially aggressive flyers over here. Then with Corin's ninja pair-up, I had enough move to run away, and prevent Camilla from getting surrounded. She could now move up to the boss, and kill her, but an Oni took her place, blocking the escape tile, so I had to use lunge. I could end the map any time now, but I decided to just weaken a few enemies for some EXP. When I was satisfied, I ceased to clear the map, with one unit killed. So chapter 23 was sort of similar to chapter 20. We've just got to fly up to the boss and kill them. Not that hard. I deployed Fuga here to help stall Scarlet, and I planned to have him fight the Kinshi, but they just darted straight for Camilla. They didn't quite kill her, but they sure were close. It's nothing a Vulnerary couldn't solve, and we easily survived this Falcon. And now it was time to engage the boss. Here I chose to equip the Yato to prevent Corin from attacking at a distance, as she might kill this mage here if she did. This fortunately wasn't an issue as they prioritized healing over attacking, but even with the healing, it wasn't enough and the boss died. With lunge, I swapped with this Master of Arms, and we then just seized the points, ending the chapter with one unit killed. Chapter 24 is conveniently an easy map for this run, as the self gimmick is perfect for this challenge. But what surprised me is just how easy this objective is. Like, I really remember having more trouble on this while I was younger, but this time I really had no issues. When I opened the final door, Corin took heavy damage, and Makoto didn't move, so I had to run away, heal up, and regroup with my secondary squad. With Fuga, I held these guys who chased off, and ran right up to this wall, where I lured in the ninjas so I could lunge over. After surviving an enemy phase, Corin runs up to Mikoto and one-rounded her with the Yato, ending the chapter with one unit killed. Chapter 25 is the funny elevator map, but it is also our final major roadblock for this challenge. So for this map, my first plan was to use Corin and Jacob here to lunge this guy out of the way to allow Corin to activate the Dragon Vein on the next turn. From here, she would be completely stuck, as even if she returned to an elevator, enemies would follow her and block it from moving. So I needed to use Rescue, but it only had 2 uses, and there were 3 Dragon Veins. So that was our first problem, but for now I just rode the elevator to the bottom right, I lunged this mage, and I easily survived enemy phase. This next part was surprisingly fairly easy. As with another lunge, the enemy moved in just the perfect position, allowing Corin to move on the Dragon Vein. However, I chose to heal rather than activate it, and I sent Camilla towards the upper Dragon Vein. But she was not as strong as I expected, and she just died. I kept trying to tank the upper units with Camilla, but the result was always the same. She was just not strong enough. But then a plan came to me. If I brought along a bunch of sacrifices, the enemy would prioritize attacking them, since they killed, allowing for a clear path to the Dragon Vein. So I tried this one more time. Like before, I lunged this Master of Arms, activated the Dragon Vein, and waited one turn to lure the enemies in. Now I rescued, and since I waited one turn, the enemies were positioned just out of range of the elevator here. In this room, I had a slight revision to my plan. as I used a Kodachi rather than a Parasol to avoid landing a crit. Then I could lunge twice here, blocking this choke point and minimizing the damage Corrin would take. Now Camilla and her army of sacrifices rode this elevator, they positioned like this, and then they pretty much all just died. But it allowed Camilla to have a clear path to the Dragon Vein, where she also unfortunately died. Keaton, who actually stayed on the elevator, positioned here to lure in some of the mages. With all 3 Dragon Veins activated, I made sure to keep Corrin right here to lure in the Basara reinforcements. Then I rescued away. Benny and Corrin now rode the elevator, and Benny got off at the first stop. As with the mages out of the way from the help of Keaton's sacrifice, he could safely hold off the Swordmasters, allowing Corrin to reach her destination. From here, Corrin ran in, lunged a merchant, dropping them in heal range, so they ran away. The path towards Sumeragi opened up. I positioned here, and now I just had to survive. The snipers were scary, but with a shield gauge I was safe, and I lured in Sumeragi. With the enemy phase over, Corrin just had to attack Sumeragi. The dumb idiot activated Astra to do nothing, and then he dies, ending the map with 1 unit killed. After a tragic farewell, we run through this door where Gunter calls Corrin the imposter, and then laughs because Among Us jokes are clearly the peak of humor. We now start this map where I quickly realize I can just cheese it on turn 1 by giving Jacob the boots and attacking Gunter on turn 1 after being danced. This took some good luck, but after a few attempts we landed a double crit, killing him, and just him for 1 unit killed. He now copies Ryoma from chapter 25 of Conquest by killing himself, but conveniently he drops a Bifrost when killed, so he just immediately gets revived. Chapter 27 is usually a really easy map, but since most of my squad is extremely underleveled, I had a little trouble here. My strategy here was to move Corrin up, dance, and attack with the Yato. Here is where I needed some good luck. This took a few tries, but eventually I reduced the boss down to below 18 HP, allowing me to use Shelter on Azura and transfer to allow for a second dance. This allows Ryoma to attack Anankos again and kill them, clearing the map with a single unit killed. For this final map, we fight Anankos, where we need to split up to take out both of the arms. A trivial task for a powerful Corrin, but a nightmare for Fuga who deals pathetic damage. And on this next turn, I was unable to finish off the arm on the right. My squad was also surrounded, so I gave up and replayed the previous map, and I was a little more prepared this time around. Like before, Corrin decimated the arm on the left with the Yato, but this time around I danced Ryoma to strike the arm on the right. He did some decent damage. And now was the interesting part. Sakura paired up with Xander to silence the Dark Knight, making them unable to attack, and I had Shura and Elise freeze the Paladin and the Wyvern to allow for a mostly safe area for my units to stand. Now I just sheltered Azura to keep her safe, and enemy phase begun. Corrin killed 1 arm and narrowly avoided killing a general, while Ryoma got just enough chip on the other arm. Unfortunately, however, the Bow Knight attacked Elise, killing her. On player phase, Ryoma could weaken Anankos, allowing for Leo to come in and get the kill, unlocking a new target to attack. To make my way there, I lunged with Corrin and danced. I now separated to try to increase the amount of targets to hopefully reduce the chance Azura would die. To aid survival, I tried to land some freezes, but only 1 landed. Corrin now attacked Anankos, doing huge damage with Dragon Fang. After some of my weaker units died on enemy phase, Corrin was healed and attacked again, taking down Anankos' 3rd HP bar. Revealing, whatever this is, I now danced Corrin, attacked, and it was time for enemy phase. Here, I've really wanted the 1-range units to not attack Corrin, or she would kill them, and fortunately my distractions came in handy for this, leaving just Fuga and Corrin alive to finish off Anankos. Fuga was out of range though, so he couldn't really help, but Corrin attacked, leaving Anankos on just a sliver of HP. Then enemy phase came around, and if any 1-range unit attacked Corrin, this would be the end. But after killing Fuga, the game took mercy on me by making Anankos attack first, making him kill himself, ending the final chapter with 1 or 4 units killed. I don't know if I should count the different parts of Anankos as a different enemy, but I'll just go with 1 since it makes this number look better. Ryoma and Xander now hold hands, credits roll, everyone lives happily ever after. The end. Despite this being fate like my previous Pacifist run, the difference in AI really changed how I played here, especially in the pretty hard early game. The mid-game had some pretty cool maps, and above all, this was just really fun. In the end, I was pretty satisfied with the kill counts, as it was much lower than I expected. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and tell me what you thought in the comments. Anyway, bye!